Joe, thank you. Scott Drew delivers on a promise he made 18 years ago, delivering a national championship to Baylor. He took over this program when it was dealing with a scandal. Now he gets them to the top of the mountain, winning their first national championship in school history. Avery, how'd they get it done?
Wow. Where do we start? Well, we can start in the first half. Baylor dominated this game from the start, especially from behind the three-point line, not only with their three-point offensive prowess, but they're also their three-point defense. They were magnificent. And they had three guys, Jared Butler, Teague Mitchell, that combined for 56 points. Their version of their big three and their guard play just absolutely annihilated on Gonzaga. And also just kind of punched them in the mouth in terms of their physicality. They dominated them on the boards. Mark Vital with 11 rebounds. This team was physical. They knew how to exploit Gonzaga's matchups in terms of getting Drew Timme involved in pick and roll situations, Kispert involved in pick and roll situations, and Timme, Kispert, they couldn't keep these Baylor guards in front of them. So where do you start? I can tell you the bench, we can go a whole lot of other places. This was one impressive performance by the Baylor Bears.
Yeah, let's start in the first half because that was really a perfect storm. Not a bad movie, 2000s, Diane Lane, Mark Wahlberg, but the perfect storm was Baylor opens up 5 of 5 from 3. And I said this before the game. I go, if they make shots, what happens when you make shots is all of a sudden that defensive intensity starts picking up. Well, that happened to start the game. The other perfect storm, Jalen Suggs. 2 early fouls. That affects him in a negative way. He never found any offensive rhythm. And then the last one, probably the most important one, Baylor's defense dictated Gonzaga's offense. I thought before the game Gonzaga's offense was going to win out, and Baylor just went, we're going to tell you guys where to go. We're going to be more athletic. And then Coach nailed it. They got Corey Kispert and Drew Timme in no man's land. They said, okay, you two guys are all Americans. You're going to have to guard us each and every possession. When you make shots, life is easier. Mark Few knew it. He waved the big old white flag. When he went zone, he admitted that he could not guard Baylor anymore. And this game was never a game. It was all Baylor.
They knocked down 10 three-pointers in this game. And, Coach, you mentioned the bench. Baylor's bench better than Gonzaga's bench. Hey, our bench is better than your bench, 21-7. And that was nearly the difference here. A 16-point win. They outscored them by 14 points in terms of bench points. And we talked about this. This bench for Baylor, Flagler, Meyer, Jonathan Chachua, these guys come off the bench. They are deep, and that's how they get this done.
And especially when Gonzaga was trying to make a run, then Flagler makes a three-point shot. Meyer makes some sort of takes a charge there, when Gonzaga's trying to make a run. So it's not what they're doing on the offensive end, but also the defensive end. And I think Baylor also has to send UCLA an early Christmas card because Gonzaga, they look like a tired basketball team. They probably shouldn't have beaten UCLA. A couple of ball bounces a different way than UCLA is in the championship game. But Baylor looked like the more energized team. It wasn't even close, ladies and gentlemen. Baylor was the much deeper team, and it was quality depth. They just didn't put guys on the floor just to say we're playing 8 guys. This is a part of their secret success, their depth. And it was quality depth and outstanding play from the first man on the court to the 8th man on the court.
Yeah, there just seemed to be no sense or urgency. And maybe that was due to the tired legs, the emotional game. I mean, we're talking about one of the greatest college basketball games we all had ever seen when Gonzaga and Jalen Suggs makes a 30-foot three and they knock off the Bruins. And then they came out in this game, they were flat, and Baylor was able to bottle up the same first 20 minutes that they had against Houston. I guess it was about 17 minutes of the first half because they had a 19-point lead in the first half. And the fact that Gonzaga even got it to 10, you were like, all right, maybe we got a little Undertaker gif action here. Maybe they come back to life. And then it was like bam, bam, bam. And it was never a game. You could almost tell eyeball test, at least I could. First 5 minutes of the game, I turned to both of you guys. I went, Gonzaga's in big-time trouble.
Yeah, you said early this was over, and they led by as many as 19 in the first half, led by as many as 20 in this game. And, of course, they go on to win 86-70. The thing that will stand out from Gonzaga, and you and I talked about this pregame, we talked about Corey Kispert. You said they were going to get after him. He struggled defensively, and also Drew Timme got into some foul trouble.
Basketball is a two-way game. I remember talking to you about you. I asked you what you did well, and you said, I was a pretty good passer. I said, yeah, but you locked up. And I meant defensively. And you went, yeah, that's just a given. You can't just play one side of the basketball, and that's why I believe basketball is the hardest sport to become a professional athlete, because you need to be able to dribble, pass, and shoot, make shots, guard, defend, help defense. Like, you can't be missing one skill set. Drew Timme and Corey Kispert had outstanding years. They were all Americans. That means they were the top 5 or 7 players in the country. And in this game, they got exposed. I mean, they got big time exposed by Baylor, and Scott Drew understood, all right, we're going to get these guys in no man's land, get them in switches, and take advantage of them. These two teams were supposed to play 4 months ago. Scott Drew had the same game plan 4 months ago. And if they would have played 4 months ago, that would have been a major advantage to Gonzaga, because they could have went out there and made adjustments. The best thing that happened to Baylor was that game did not play. Mark Few, Scott Drew, they play paddleball together, pickleball, so they know each other well. Plus, Scott Drew, he's been building that program from an absolute disaster. Gonzaga's been on the mountain now. He was gunning for him. His team wanted it more, and this was just utter domination, Coach.
And it was domination by the best player on the court. And that's Jared Butler. Guys, make no mistake about it. Sure, Davion Mitchell was good. Teague was outstanding. But Jared Butler was the best player on the court. When we did NBA comparisons and we talked about Davion Mitchell being compared to Kyle Lowry, champion. We talked about Jared Butler, not, in a sense, perfect comparison to Steph Curry, but we were talking about his three-point range and his shooting ability and his outside stroke. And Steph Curry is a multiple NBA champion. So in the WCC or whatever conference Gonzaga plays in.
Don't do that.
I'm sorry.
Don't do
I'm sorry.
that.
Hey, whatever conference
the
they
West
play in.
Coast Conference.
The West Coast Conference. There's no Jared Butler.
No, there's not.
And Davion Mitchell.
No, there's not.
And tonight, Maceo Teague.
No, they don't have those 3 players in the West Coast Conference.
But at the same time, we have to give Mark Few and Gonzaga credit. Those guys had an unbelievable year.
31-0.
Unbelievable year. All of the pressure on those kids, along with what happened with the pandemic. So give them credit. It's just, unfortunately, tonight, they just didn't have their best game. If we play this game again on Tuesday night, 2 days, Wednesday night, couple of days rest, it could potentially be a different outcome.
Do you really believe that?
No.
Yeah, I knew you did. How could you watch this game and possibly think, if Gonzaga would just do this, the game would be different? You know what Gonzaga would have to do? They'd have to do this, that, the thing down the street, the thing. They had to do like 15 things different. Like, they got worked in every facet of the game. And then once Suggs got in foul trouble, and then the second half, Timme got in foul trouble, then what really got exposed was the bench. And it was like, oh, yeah, man, their bench is actually not that good. And then Baylor's bench really started to thrive. Teague was unbelievable. There's always a supporting cast guy in Avery Johnson or Robert Orr. There's always a supporting cast guy that steps up and plays big in big games. Maceo Teague happened to be that guy. And every break that could have went Baylor's way, a 50-50 ball, a layup, it seemed to go Baylor's way. Gonzaga missed 3 layups in the first half. Like, if you're trying to win a national championship and your margin of error is really small against a team that was obviously feeling it, but I agree with Coach. If they played 10 times, maybe Gonzaga against the once.
I'll tell you what, though. I mean, think how disappointing those kids feel in that locker room if you're Gonzaga. You start the season, you're feeling good. You get to the national championship, you're 31-0, and then the last game you play, you don't play to your capability. You get essentially dominated by Baylor, by a better team. Now, how do you how do you look back at this season and know that you had a chance to have an undefeated season and be just the 8th team ever to do it?
You walk away with your heads held high because obviously you lose in the championship game, but these kids accomplished so much, and they were an inspiration to so many kids all around the world. And when you look at the alumni from Gonzaga, they're going to be proud and the supporters of this program, they're going to be very proud of this basketball team because they play the right way. They play with a lot of heart. They share the basketball. They, from an analytics standpoint, They're not just a three-point shooting team. This team is very efficient inside the three-point line. They have a big guy, Drew Timme, who's an outstanding player. You know, you got Suggs, who played football at quarterback in Minnesota, everything in multiple sports. Very well coached. And they continue to recruit at a high level. I thought I just read that they signed another 5-star kid. Recruits want to play for Coach Few. They want to go to Gonzaga. They're not necessarily just going to Kentucky and all of the blue bloods anymore. You know, these are two schools that don't have a long history of championships.
You know, I do think that this game hurts their recruiting. I really feel like, and I know we're kind of jumping the gun, but I'm telling you, if I'm a rival coach and we're going after the same kid, I'm telling him, you come to this conference, we're going to play X amount of games against not WCC opponents. You know, there was a couple of plays there. One stood out to me. Corey Kispert drive, had a step or two on his defender, and in the WCC, that's a layup. And against Baylor, it got thrown into the stands. So this was a tough L. I was just going through Mark Few's coaching record. What do you? I see you shaking your head.
No, I totally disagree. This is not going to hurt Gonzaga's recruiting. How many Sweet 16s have they been to in the last 5 years?
31-0, 31-2, 33-4, 32-5, 37-2. Big number 0 to me, guys. 0 national championships. So if we're recruiting the same kid, I'm just telling you what my recruiting pitch is. Go watch that Corey Kispert play. It's different in WCC. You want to come to a Power 5 school? You're going to go through a different set of circumstances. In the Big 12 this year, how many good teams were out there? Check out the Pac-12, all those quality teams. A lot. The WCC, they make any noise? BYU, poof, first round gone.
But they've been knocking on the door, and they just haven't knocked it down yet. But I don't think this hurts Gonzaga's recruiting by any stretch of the imagination. Kids could feel proud that they're not running away from anybody. They want to play. They'll play you. They'll go anywhere. Yeah. They tried to play Baylor early in the season in December. I think Houston tried to play against Gonzaga. So I believe that this was an unfortunate night for Gonzaga. Outstanding program. They can compete with anybody. Kentucky didn't make it to the tournament this year.
Yeah.
Louisville didn't make it to the tournament this year.
Duke didn't make it to the tournament.
Duke didn't make it to the tournament this year.
All those teams with national championships.
But Gonzaga's in the finals. That was in the past. Their national championships are in the rearview mirror.
Yeah, Jim Kelly and Thurman Thomas, though, they're sitting somewhere going, hey, we've had this feeling before, close but no cigar. Hey, if you're Scott May, if you're Kent Benson, I don't know where you are. You're somewhere in the great Midwest. Cheers to you, boys. Because the last undefeated national champion, 1975-1976, the Indiana Hoosiers, they got to go Dolphin style. They got to do a little picture with their cheersing right now. The Dolphins do it every year when another team that looks like they're going to go undefeated, they can't pull through in the NFL. It's tough to do it. UNLV couldn't do it. Kentucky couldn't do it, and now Gonzaga couldn't do it. Win every single game and cut down the nets at the end of the day.
And, Coach, get this. Baylor had just one NCAA tournament appearance in the 53 seasons prior to Scott Drew's arrival in 2003. Since then, he's guided the Bears to 9 NCAA tournament appearances and now the school's first national championship. What does it say about Scott Drew to lead this program to a national title?
Well, it says a tremendous amount about Scott Drew. I would consider him a friend. I've had an opportunity to go on recruiting trips to Baylor when my son was in high school along with some of his teammates. I've seen Scott Drew recruiting pitch to the prospective student athletes and their parents, and I want to say that it's very impressive. This guy knows all the numbers. He knows all of the analytics, their operation in terms of parents going to football games, and so they really do a great job of recruiting. But let's give Baylor's administration credit. We're in a microwave society, ladies and gentlemen, when a coach only has 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, or if a coach goes to the Final Four or the Elite Eight and loses, maybe he'll bounce and go to a school, maybe even in the conference like, Coach Beard did by leaving Texas Tech to go to Texas. But give Baylor's administration credit. They exhibited a lot of patience. My mom used to say Rome wasn't built in a day. That's what Baylor took that approach with Scott Drew, even through some of the disappointing times. His first 4 years ineligible, 11 place, two 12th place finishes, another 11th place finish. But guess what? He was able to retain his job and ride it out until they got to this point.
Yeah, and he evolved as a coach. I mean, I was just going through their roster. Jarrett Butler started where?
Alabama.
You know, Maceo Teague started at UNC Asheville. Davion Mitchell started at Auburn. Flagler started at Presbyterian.
It's a different game.
But if you want to coach college basketball, you got to find a way to get guys players. And he always had an identity. It was always long, athletic, rebounding defense. And he evolved like basketball has evolved. What is Baylor from the three-point line? Number one. The best three-point shooting team in college basketball. So even though he had an identity and a style of play, he was like, I got to catch up to the times. I got to go get transfers. I got to teach the three, play by the three. He did it, and that's why they're champions.
One streak ends, one streak continues. This was the 5th time in the national championship the AP top 2 teams meet. The number 2 team walks away as the national champion. Avery Johnson, Tim Doyle, Hakeem Dermish in Indianapolis. And wow. Almost perfect as Gonzaga comes up short. And 2 teams have come to Indianapolis undefeated. Now a 3rd team comes to Indianapolis undefeated. They do not leave undefeated. As Baylor earns its one shining moment, winning its first national championship.
About the game, the highlights, the picks, the instant analysis. No yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.